Sup guys, it's Oakley. I'm covering some news. CA actually just released something saying they're going to have 2 weeks of 24-hour community support right when the game launches, and they're kind of going balls to the walls in terms of making the game as accessible and viable for anyone who's just coming on to play Total War. So what they've done is they've released an entire wiki page that's dedicated to getting you used to the game, and what they ask is that you please, tell friends, people who are unfamiliar with the game, who might have, might be wondering, maybe this game is too complicated for me. If you could just show them the link that I'll provide below, it'll walk them through how to get started. So this will be more information that is broken down into various categories. Each of these videos is not longer than like 45 seconds, and the first couple ones are really basic, not much we can learn from it, it's just new gameplay, but towards the end it's something that's really interesting. We get to see some awesome new footage that I'm very excited for. So the first one's here, just walk you through the point and click mechanics. It walks you through the tech tree. Something new I didn't know about the tech trees is once you go all the way through a particular section of the tech tree, you actually get an additional bonus. So it's they said the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So once you do a whole tech tree, you actually get additional bonuses and not just the specific bonuses of that individual technology. So that's new. So there's little tidbits of information that I'll point out and show to you here. But all in all, this is mostly stuff we've heard, except for the footage towards the end of this. It's really, really cool. So yeah, here it basically talks about your army, the different stances you can go into, and how that works, the different bonuses. So it kind of points out what are the new details in the game, and then it talks about how you can just turn an army into a fleet right there. The next part is going to be talking about advancing in your campaign. So it's going to be, this first one is going to be developing your cities. So this is going to be the buildings. And it kind of just walks you through the progression of the buildings that you move through. So it says how you have your main city here. Provinces will be up to 4 cities. There's a capital essentially for each province, which has a wall. The other ones don't. And then you can develop your city as you please. Do you want it to be economic, military, or whatnot? And then you also have the edicts and how that comes into play. So, if you want to refresh on your bit of knowledge on Rome 2 so you can hit the ground running come the game's launch, check out these videos. Otherwise, if you're a new player, definitely check these out. These will help you a lot. And here they point out population, stuff like that. The next part is going to be trade, which just goes over more and more of the intricacies of trade. It looks very awesome. There's a trade panel. Also, the amount of trade and your import and exports is dependent on the buildings you have in your city, as well as any ongoing deals you have and some mineral sources that you have in your city, which will dictate how much you can import, export. There's also supply and demand mechanism. Next part is agents and actions. So they talk about how you can essentially have your generals, and your generals, as they rank up, they can actually influence positively towards your family and do well. And so if you have a very good general, he will add more influence to your particular family in your faction. So it's more of the inner political dynamics within a faction and how you have to manage that, and how once your faction gets more and more political capital, you can essentially let that accumulate, or you can expend it on sort of political actions, which might be to assassinate someone or to interact with them in some way. So that's the cool thing right there, as well as having the next section here, which talks about the 3 different agent types you'll have, which is the spy, the diplomat, and the champion. And they'll vary and have different flavors for different factions, but essentially all of them will have 3 different main ways you can upgrade them, and they can all do the same general types of actions, but they'll have specific traits. Now we get on to this very, very awesome part, which is additional gameplay. This one talking about unit abilities here. So it talks about how there's a lot of unit abilities that you're going to have to utilize. So for example, using Frenzy as the barbarians will give you extra buffs. You can have archers that'll reload and shoot quicker. And they say this is going to be very important for managing your troops and making the most use of them. I also wanted to point out the background. The videos on all these, even if they're cinematics and handled by people who know what they're doing with cinematics, it does look very, very awesome. Anyways, we keep seeing new gameplay, and these different tactics will be unlocked with more elite units and technologies. The next is going to be controls. So again, this is kind of obvious, something we've learned from previous games. It talks about groupings and stuff like that. But look at the map, look at the legions, look at the forces. This is so epic, dude. Like, I am salivating looking at this footage. And just, I don't even care about the basic info. They're telling me I'll watch this 10 times just to see the legion standing there, the varied battlefield, the pyramids in the background. Man, this is just looking better and better. I can hardly imagine what the day of reckoning when the game comes out and we can finally play with it. Yeah, they're talking more about groupings and stuff like that. It's really basic stuff. So again, if you're new at the game, go ahead and check out these videos. If you're a veteran, go ahead and check them out even more just to see the footage. Again, I love that opening cinematic right there. Really shows the awesome animations. This is very cool. It talks about the benefits of spears. So obviously they're going to be a mass dense formation that are good at fending off frontal assaults and cavalry charges, but then they're weak from the side. And they say they're susceptible to light forces that move around the flank, so skirmishers or infantry that can move around. More awesome combat animations. I love these cinematics. I'm going to be putting together cinematics of my own, making some short epic clips and stuff like that. Look at the flying wedges in action. I believe those were Macedonian cavalry. Just some more awesome footage that we get to look through. It's way too epic. And the next one is going to be shock cavalry. So now we get to look at a bit more of the cavalry, and we see some of the heavy Cappadocians right here looking very, very epic. Keep in mind that all cav can dismount, so they'll be a bit more viable. The shock cavalry are going to be very heavily armored, high armor, high health, and stuff like that. And they say they're good at breaking up enemy formations. And if you time it perfectly, you can really shatter and do great damage to an enemy. But keep in mind that despite their armor, they're still going to suffer pretty heavy casualties against a frontal assault versus spearing. And they also say that these cavalry will tire quickly because they're so heavily armored in movement and also while they're in combat. And they also say that the ideal tactic is to get in, deliver your shock charge, and then retreat and pull out before they can get whittled down. The next one is going to be talking about naval assaults. We see some quick gameplay again, talking about mostly the assault ships right here are going to be the larger ones. They're going to be the ones that are great at ramming, and they have these towers that can deliver skirmisher and bow attacks. And look at that strike right there. Very, very impressive. Egyptians are going to have big units, and then you can also have, of course, the direct assaults onto the boats to wipe out the people there. The next one here is going to be the army stances, fortifications. We saw this early on the campaign map, and they talk about this here, but then they show us off a bit more what it looks like on the campaign, or on the battle map, I should say. Campaign map, you get these different things, you get caltrops, you get fireballs and all these different deployables, and in game you can actually choose where and when you want to deploy these. So the caltrops here to block cavalry, you can have different spears and spikes and small walls, and they also say in addition to that, if you're the Romans, you get your own special Roman camp. So that's very, very exciting. I've always loved having deployables. This is just going to make it that much more exciting. So thanks so much. Make sure to rewatch all that footage and see the direct stuff if you're new or if you're a veteran. Check out the description below. See you next time.